I won't be here next week. I'm leaving. I'm going on a family vacation.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where you going?
Next
Huh?
Next
Oh,
for
yeah.
a week.
Yeah.
We got a big old house down there, so. So if you wonder why I'm not here next week, that's
You'll
where
be off and about.
I'm about.
Out and about.
I overheard you on vacation. I was the week before.
We on?
Yes.
That's how I was last week.
We already had the third reading.
Doesn't sound like it though, does it?
Didn't we? On which one? Park Street?
Maybe it does.
I can't remember. My mind is blank.
I'm just not doing it in the right
Would
spot.
have been me and
I think we did.
that's what I thought, but
It ain't on here, so it would be the third reading, right?
yeah, it would be.
And all we got here
I'm pretty
is-
sure
we
we
got
had
one
it.
third reading. Here it is, the rezoning, this one?
No, that's,
No? That's only third
That's
reading.
what the-
That's only third reading we got.
yeah, I know.
We must have.
I think we did it last week.
We good? We live?
So I'm wondering how all the plans here.
Right, right, right.
Set? I call the Norton City Council regular council meeting to order for Monday, June 17th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Carratt?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke?
Yeah, here.
Mr. Pelot?
Mr. Pelot's excused.
Mr. Kernan?
Here. Under communications from the public, when you come up, please state your name and your address. Speak clearly. Please bring the microphone close to your mouth so that it can be recorded. Deborah Pfeiffer.
My name is Deborah Pfeiffer. My husband and I live at 3764 Golf Course Drive in Ward 3. Our property is on the west side of the proposed MUD rezoning of Barberton Brookside Country Club. We have been experiencing flooding for the last 10 years that is coming from the properties beyond the northern end of Golf Course Drive. And this flooding affects every property on the west side of Golf Course Drive and has undermined the road of Golf Course Drive as well. Over the past 10 years, we, as well as many of our neighbors, have spoken to councilmen and mayors trying to get help with this problem. So far, nothing has been done to mitigate this issue. Part of the MUD rezoning of Brookside includes a lot that is owned by Joe Flog that lies north of our road. We are concerned that once the rezoning is approved and it goes into effect, and that the properties north of Joe's lot will also become part of this rezoning, that the flooding we are experiencing right now will get worse. Some of us also wonder if the reconstruction of the ramp from 21 to 76 may have had something to do with this further diversion of water that is running through our lots and down our road. We ask you that you check into this or approach the county to see if there is some kind of remedy that they can put in place now, or some type of provision in the rezoning that you could put in place for the property that's north of Golf Course Drive to mitigate any further damage to our properties before you rezone these lots. I understand that we live on a private road. That's become that's what everybody says. But the runoff from our property and on the road, goes down the road and goes into Hudson Run, which affects other parts of Norton as well. And please remember, we too are residents of Norton, even though we live on a private road. We're taxpayers and we vote in Norton. I have a few pictures of the road that, the damage to the road that happened from the storm at 5 o'clock last night. One of the neighbors tried to fix our road yesterday and succeeded, and I asked Mr. Courant to come out and look, and I don't know if you made it.
Yes.
Before or after he regraded it. The one guy down the road brought his tractor up. He felt so bad, so he tried to fix it. But again, the road totally washed out. It's washing out the whole way up the road. It's undermining everything. So if you want to see these pictures, they're here. I appreciate your listening, and hopefully you'd be willing to help us. We certainly could use some help. So.
Thank you, Ms. Pfeiffer. Could you leave your statement and your pictures with the clerk so we can put those in the record, and then she can make copies and pass them out to council if that's okay, and the administration. Thank you.
I have some digital copies too.
Tanya Vanderveen.
Tanya Vanderveen, 3004 Union Street, Norton. I was last here on May 20th.
It's a little bit closer to the microphone. Thank you.
I always have
That's
this issue.
okay.
I was last here on May 20th and was out of town for a couple of weeks and missed the last meeting that you had, I believe, on June 10th. There were 2 sessions canceled, so I think I've missed 1 meeting. So I just came with a couple of, with several questions as a follow-up to some of the things that I asked and stated at the May 20th meeting. Regarding the inability to speak at planning commission meetings. You know, I provided my, I guess, question about what forum would I have to speak to planning commission members if I'm not allowed to speak at their meetings. So I was wondering if council would come up with a remedy regarding my ability to do that. That's one question. My second question is that at the meeting on 5/20, Mr. Joe Casey provided a proposal, an ordinance, and he provided that to the head of Personnel and Rules Committee, which proposed changing the current I-1 light industry requirements to different footage, basically. Same language, but different feet from what the current ordinance states for light industry. And I'm wondering what the status of that is. 3, I've spoken to a lot of you individually, privately, here in this forum, about my concerns with the property next door to me, specifically as it relates to the part that backs up to McCafferty Park from KDA building, and that being cleaned up. I've gotten lots of answers, lots of suggestions, and since I was out of town for a couple weeks, quite frankly forgot what you advised I should do to formally have that assessed and addressed, because it continues obviously to be an eyesore and something that I'm not going to just let go. 4, the home that is ready to be torn down on 23rd and Union, the gentleman that you guys helped get into AMH housing, that whole scenario, I wanted to know what the status of that being torn down was, because it's still standing. And I also wanted to know that once the land bank takes that property over, who's going to maintain it? Does the land bank maintain it, or does the city of Norton maintain it? Question 5 is, I wanted to know if anybody had any idea when Union Street, the road that I live on, where it falls in the scheme of things in terms of repaving. It's falling apart. I sympathize with Ms. Pfeiffer. While my road doesn't have the kind of damage that I saw on her top picture, it's getting there, and it needs to be repaved. So I wanted to ask about that. And finally, in the meeting that I missed, I read on the county's website that a new ordinance, 75/2019, was introduced regarding an amendment to basically junk cars in people's yards, and I would like to know if that is applicable to boats. Thank you.
So, Ms. Vanderveen, if you can stick around afterwards, I do have some information regarding the property, the KDA property.
Okay.
that I'll talk with you about. The other things, the clerk will get those questions to the appropriate people, and we'll get some answers to you. Okay? Thank you. Under Committee of the Whole, any reports from the standing committees? We'll move on to letter A, Ms. Whipke, cleaning contract. Yes.
Can I sign up real quick? I was like,
Will you take this to him and let him sign up? She'll bring it to you. Richard Duncan,
yes, sir.
please state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Richard Duncan, 5520 Kungle Road, in Norton. Okay? I hate to barge in here, but I've been busy cleaning up floods over the last couple days. I live in the house that has on Kungle Road, that has the bridge that you guys are arguing with Summit County as to whose responsibility it is. And I understand that. Nobody wants to pay for this. Meanwhile, I'm flooding. I've got water in my basement the last 2 nights. Somebody, Mr. Zita, you're supposed to, I talked to the Summit County engineers today several times, and they say all Mike Zita has to do is call us, and I understand your position that implies responsibility, and I understand it. You're not responsible for it. It's a county issue. I get it. I understand all this stuff. I don't want to keep flooding. I think you were out there this morning.
I was.
What time?
7. Yeah,
Okay.
you were out there about 7:30.
About 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, it collapsed even further. Okay, so when you saw it is not what it is right now. My concern is real simple. We're due to get another batch of rain all week. They issued a flood warning already just now for this area. And to be honest with you, I don't want to be up at 2 o'clock every morning watching my basement flood and me being hopeless or helpless getting something done or trying to clean it up. I'm exhausted. And I hate to come across like this. Denny knows me. I'm not, I'm frustrated because, and I'm kind of frustrated at you. And you're the mayor. Call them. Talk to them. I think that's what the problem is. There's no communication going back and forth. I talked to them. They said, it's a matter of jurisdiction. We just can't go in there. And I don't know if they're lying to me. I don't know. I don't. But it's a matter of jurisdiction. We can't just go in there and dig it out. I don't care what you guys do with the road. I just want the dam cleared so that I'm not up every night when it rains cleaning out my basement.
So
Can't there be communication with Summit County?
So
I know you've been talking with Bethany. I think her name is McKinney, and she's trying to help, but we're getting nowhere. And again, I've talked to the Summit County engineers a couple times today, and they've told me the same thing. All Mike Zita has to do is ask us. We could be out there and have it done in 2 hours. How does that make me feel? How does that make me feel that my mayor won't get on the phone and just say, hey, it's not our responsibility, but go ahead, help us clean that thing out for him, will you?
We have sent, you all have been well informed as to the issues with the county engineer. We have sent him correspondence today. We've asked him to handle his statutorily obligated duties, and he has denied his willingness. At 5:26 today, we got an email saying he's not willing to do it. So I understand what you're saying, but we're getting different email correspondence from the county engineer, Alan Brubaker. We are going to have a meeting with the county executive. We have asked the county executive to get involved with this issue because the county executive, much like us, agrees with the statute. If it's over 10 feet, it falls to the county. I understand what you're saying. Mr. Brubaker wants us to tell him to come in and fix it because then we're getting the bill. That's why he wants.
That's not what I'm being told. I'm just telling you. That's not what
I
I'm
understand
being told.
that's not what you're being told, but I'm telling you that's what's going on because we have sent him emails. I've sent his chief of staff emails. We've been asking them for the last 3 months to get involved in this project, and the only answer we get is, it's not our problem, we're not going to deal with it. We give them the higher revised code section, which clearly articulates that they're responsible for anything over 10 feet, and a section in the code. I believe I emailed your wife. She should have it. I emailed her correspondence outlining all the issues with this matter. And the county engineer is responsible under the revised code for anything in the county. He said that, well, we gave it to the township in 1949. Well, a county engineer is the township engineer, so they can't really abdicate their duty to somebody else. There's a whole list. I know you're caught in the middle. I know, and I apologize. We've been fighting this. We've asked the county engineer and the executive. We asked them in May for a meeting. We have a meeting on Wednesday. This was well scheduled before this happened. And no, that's no comfort or solace, but we have asked them to mitigate the situation. It's their responsibility.
So I'm nowhere.
We've asked them to fix the
I
problem,
get it.
and they're telling us.
Have you asked them in person?
I sent them an email, correspondence
I don't
telling
care about
them
email.
that.
I mean, the problem with the world today is nobody wants to talk to anybody. We need to pick up the phone, and we need to have somebody talk to these clowns and say, why are you telling Mr. Duncan that XYZ? Is that it's just a matter of jurisdiction instead of what you're telling me? Why are you lying to this gentleman? Because that's what they're telling me. That's what they're telling Bethany, I believe.
Well, and that's right. I was going to say, and from what they're telling Bethany, and from what Bethany's telling us, and from what we're telling Beth, it's not all. That's why there's a meeting on
it's
Wednesday.
A meeting on Wednesday doesn't help me if I flood again tonight. I appreciate the fact that you actually went down there and looked, but you're mistaken. It's a dam now. It's not a culvert. It's crazy. It's crazy. I have, and I'm just sitting. I'm stuck in flood zone, in a flood area. It's not even a flood zone anymore.
So I think one of the problems is that what we have to realize is that this city is not empowered, and that we cannot legally spend these taxpayers' money on something that the county should be paying for. That's the problem.
I agree with you 100%.
Let me finish. Let me finish, and I'll give you more time. I'll give you all the time you want. But when the city engineer says all they have to do is call us, that means you call us, we'll clean it up, and we'll bill you. And we're not paying that bill.
Did you talk to your legal counsel today?
Yes, I did.
And what did they tell you?
He's right there.
Right here.
And what did you tell him? Does that,
What about the responsibility for the bridge? So I'll.
Let there be a communication with them, with saying to the effect that just because I'm asking for your help, which is what you've asked me to do, you've asked us to do that, this does not mean that we are responsible for this deal.
We can certainly communicate that. I doubt they're going to be responsive to it. And I'll echo. I understand.
It's funny because I use
So hold on. Let him finish, and then let's have a discussion as opposed to back and forth here.
So I'll just echo what Mr. Fowler said. We raised this issue. I went back and looked at my emails. May 13th is the emails I have. We were talking about setting up a meeting. So the county stopped inspecting Kungle Road some point in the past for whatever reason. They weren't maintaining it. The city was the one that knows the problem and said, "Go ahead, Mr. Fowler.
Let's step back.
Yeah, step back.
Step
Give
back.
some history."
So let's give you. So in January,
There you go.
let's start in January. Let's give you the full perspective of this. January, and you'll probably notice there's a sign for the city of New Franklin in your yard. Okay, so we've heard that the bridge is in New Franklin, the bridge is in Norton, the bridge splits. I'm just going to give you the full perspective so you can understand why this has not been as simple as just is up. Okay. So anyhow, so New Franklin's been working on that bridge for how long? You know, you live out there.
You know, they came out and they actually repaired
Right.
up underneath it.
Right,
So
right,
why
okay,
they did that, I
right,
have no
right,
idea.
right. Well, so it comes to us. So New Franklin says, wait a minute, we think it's in Norton. So now we are discussing this matter with New Franklin. So Norton, City of Norton, we took and paid for a survey. I hired an engineer to go do a survey to confirm the location of the bridge. What's the location of the bridge? The whole bridge, actually that sign for New Franklin is not in the proper location. That stream is all in Norton. So the entire bridge is in Norton. Once we discovered that the bridge is now in Norton, we ordered an inspection. The inspection indicated, one, that there was failure, which immediately we closed it for life and safety. Obviously, you saw today the effect of why we should have closed it. And then secondly, that the size dictated that it was a county bridge. So we notify the county, and at that point, they kept giving us reasons why it wasn't theirs. Well, it was half in the city, it's half in New Franklin, so it can't be a county bridge. And we didn't even give them the information that we had done a survey that falls all in Norton. That road used to be, and I'm giving a lot of history here, that used to be Cleveland-Massillon Road. Congo Road was the original Cleveland-Massillon Road before the new Cleveland-Massillon Road was built. Going into a lot of detail, but this is a county road. You can't have a road that traverses two townships that now it wasn't a county road. Now they're arguing that it wasn't a county road, that they gave it to us in 1949. And I understand. So we've been arguing about this, and I know that's no comfort or solace to you. I sent them an email saying, fix it. It's your obligation, fix it. I'll send them another one saying, you need to fix it. It's in our jurisdiction, but it's your responsibility, and we're not paying for it. But I'm just, and I'll be glad to blind copy on the email. I'll send it tonight before I go home. But I'm telling you, they are not going to come out and fix it.
Emails are not going to work.
Well, Al Brubaker responded tonight at 5:20. So
I'm sorry?
Mr. Brubaker responded at 5:20 this
Well, the
evening.
point I was
I
going
was
to make.
talking to them people at 4:30 or 4:45.
Okay, so
The point I was going to make
Mr.
is
Markey.
that May 13th, around that time, we're asking for in-person meetings, and they gave us June 19th as the meeting. So we can request a meeting all day long, and they pushed us out a month and a half almost to have a meeting on this issue. So we've been trying to have an in-person meeting, and this is the date we got. Right. That was scheduled 5 or 6 weeks ago, and that happens to be Wednesday. And it just so happens that obviously the bridge failure happened last night. So
You know, the bridge
been
failure
trying.
has been happening for a little
The
while.
catastrophic failure happened
Yeah.
last night.
Catastrophic
That you're
failure
concerned.
happened last night.
That brings you concern.
Right. And I know none of that helps you. I'm just telling you, we've been trying to have an in-person meeting. We've been trying to address it, and they don't want to have in-person meetings. They pushed it off, and we finally have a date, which is Wednesday.
Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Duncan, I'd just like to point out, as far as I'm concerned, our administration sending that email much, much better than trying to talk to them. You've talked to them, you've got one story. They talk to them, they get another story. They have actual documentation of what they requested, and they have documentation of what they responded. Much better than,
I
like you're
understand.
saying, the talking. So they have been trying, because I've been keeping up and watching and paying attention, but you can't.
My point is, it's a little difficult to call a guy a liar in an email.
No, it isn't.
I
No, it
don't
is
think
not.
I don't think it's as effective.
They did, as far as I'm concerned, by saying fix it, and they're saying they can't. What they told you, it's all different. In the email, it says something different, so that's the proof that we have been trying, and they are refusing to cooperate.
Engineers, is it possible to clean that up in a couple hours, to dig that up so it doesn't back up? Is it possible? They've told me twice that they could do it.
I don't do it. I have no.
Well, if so, then they ought to get out there and do it.
That's easy for you to say, not for
I'm
me.
I'm just saying.
The only thing is when
My point is, how much does it cost the city of Norton? Give me the bill. How much does it cost the city of Norton to send a crew out there for 2 hours to take it?
You know what, Mr. Duncan?
Clean
It could cost $5, and that would be illegal for us to spend money on something that is not our
You're not, I am.
responsibility.
You're not. Give me the bill. I can't. I'm spending the money anyways. I've already replacing 2 water heaters, a furnace, and all this other stuff. So I'm spending the money anyways. Why don't I just fix the problem? I don't care what you guys do with the bridge. I need the obstruction cleared. And when people are telling me this can be done in a matter of 2 hours, I lose my mind because I'm exhausted of cleaning up floodwater all the time now.
Mr. Fowler, you will contact the engineer this
I'll do
evening.
that. And I think there's another solution that I think that we can try. I think we can try to get Magic City to make sure the culvert is clear. And that's something we can legally do. Clean culverts is something that we have the legal authority to do to cure any obstruction. And I don't know that I can get them out there tonight.
It doesn't, and it doesn't have to be huge.
No. But I think we might be able to do something like that where he has the comfort now, and if this, please God forbid, not allow this to happen, but if this drags on for a significant period of time, at least his issue could be addressed.
That's all I care about at this point in time.
I understand, and I understand. You've been very patient. I appreciate it, but
I haven't said word once.
No. That's
since
why I
the
said you've been
beginning of all
patient.
this.
No, you have.
I will end with this. You guys had your workers out on Eastern Road, and they were that property that's around the backside of me. You cleaned out that culvert right there in the matter of a half an hour, 45 minutes. Where's the water going to go? You're cleaning out an area where the water has nowhere to go anyways. All you're doing is keeping some of the water in the ditch, but when it gets down past my house, under my bridge, to the culvert, it's stopping anyways. That money was completely a waste of time at this point in time. And all I'm just using that as in context because I'm having this issue and I see a culvert getting cleaned out that is irrelevant.
You're experiencing.
Yeah, I want to explain that we were not cleaning out the culvert. What had happened there is the integrity of the road was compromised, so we were trying to keep the water from undermining the road. So it was a little bit different, but it doesn't help you. I understand. I'm going to get a hold of Larry maybe I text him now and see if we can get Magic City Drain to come out and clean out that culvert for you, maybe even tonight, and we'll see what we can do. Okay.
That would absolutely be
The culvert
unbelievable.
was in fact clear this morning. The culvert was open, and as well as water was running on on our side of the culvert.
Mm-hmm.
So there was water running almost the full diameter of the culvert as well as this side.
It isn't now. It isn't now. And I mean, I have pictures. You don't even want to see the pictures. It's unbelievable as to what happened.
Okay, so we're going to see what we can do. Mr. Fowler, I see, is on his phone right now. I assume texting somebody. So
Thank you.
we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
If not tonight, we'll get it first
Thank
thing.
you. That's
Thank you,
all I ask.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, under Committee of the Whole, letter A, cleaning contract, Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Roadmaster has actually worked cleaning our city for 25 years or more, and this is a renewal for the next 3 years at the same cost that I believe they've maintained for probably the last 9 years. They are very reasonable. They scrub the carpets, the normal cleaning they do. They scrub the carpets, wash the windows several times a year, scrub and wax the community center ballroom once each quarter, as well as window clean. They do and they go around the city doing it. The contract price is $23,252.04, and I'm looking at it coming down to $1,937.67 per month. But I think we're getting a deal.
And they're a local company, are they not?
Yes, they are. They're up located on Wadsworth Road.
Corner of Rose Bay and 261.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? I motion to add Ordinance 76, 2019 to tonight's agenda for first reading.
I'll second. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Letter B, street sweeper, Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're looking again at purchasing a street sweeper. This was actually approved by the Board of Control this past February for a Timco Model 600. as I understand it, we're looking to purchase it in January, or get it in January, but we're looking to start the process now because it takes, 4 to 6 months to get it together. And this is a lease to purchase, correct?
Yes.
And this is to not exceed the acquisition cost of $258,968.10. The payments would be at 4.42 interest, regardless of whether we start the first payment 30 days after the lease commencement or we do it for the following year, or 1 year from that. The interest is amount, but the price changes. And I'm seeing like an $11,000 difference between making the payment 30 days after or 1 year after. And I'm wondering if anybody can tell me which one is more affordable, really.
We normally make the payment up front in advance, what they call in advance rather than in arrears.
Mm-hmm.
And that saves us interest.
So-
And I will check this rate again. This was given back a month or so ago, and rates are changing almost by the hour, so chances are probably good that we can even get a cheaper lease rate, which will bring the payments down even lower. And they could go up, too. I mean,
And it's supposed to, we're looking at it to last 10 years with the proper maintenance and upkeep. Is that normal lifespan on these?
Yes.
Then we would be looking probably to add this to our little,
Rotation.
yes, thank you.
Yes, our capital improvement rotation.
And then that way we would be trading it back in, so hopefully we won't be quite as much. Anyone else?
Charlotte, I will have to say that it's just more than a street sweeper. It also will clean out our catch basins and gutters also.
Right, so it's going to save us a lot
Yes.
and help maintain the roads that we've been working so hard at either fixing or putting in properly.
It would be nice to keep some of these storm sewers cleared and the catch basins cleared so that when we have rain events, at least where we have the storm sewers and stuff, they will be well maintained, so.
Ron, are you guys, are you wanting to do this for the 5-year plan or the 7? Which one?
normally we do 7, but this is probably a bigger than usual purchase in that, so I wouldn't rule out a 7-year in that, but normally we try to do it in 5. I guess when we put the budget together, we'll just have to see, you know, how it comes down.
But you think it'll probably be the 7, right?
Well,
All comes down to the budget, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's gonna come down to.
To be conservative, we ought to just plan on that and move on from there.
Probably 7 to be conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we make an agreement with them for the 7 and then we come back and we say we want to pay it in 5, is that going to be penalized for it?
We'd have to look at the contract and see.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
First reading tonight.
yes, I motion to add ordinance 77, 2019 to tonight's agenda for a first reading.
I'll second. Further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Letter C, fire vehicle purchase. Ms. Whipke?
Thank you, Mr. President. We're actually looking to get another Durango, and I believe this is for the fire. Well, I know it's for the fire department, and it's going to be purchased from Fred Martin. We're getting the same deal as before. We're replacing a 2008 Ford Edition, and they're going to give us a $7,000 trade-in. So the amount won't exceed $24,924. We had taken in several quotes, and Fred Martin still came out to be the best on that. And this is keeping in step with our vehicle replacement plan. Anyone else?
I guess I was gonna ask the chief, how many vehicles do you have right now?
Chief, could you come up to the microphone, please? That'll give you some time to count them up.
How many vehicles do we have total?
I mean, like the Dodge.
Like the
Ram.
SUVs?
Yeah.
We have one pickup truck We have 2 pickup trucks and an SUV.
Okay. And this SUV is replacing that SUV?
Correct.
Okay.
And the pickup trucks, what years are those right now? Are those older?
One is a 1997,
Okay.
the big 4-door one, and the other one is a 2012.
Okay.
A 1997?
Yes. Yes.
Is that one due to be replaced soon?
It's a great vehicle. No,
Okay.
No,
Oh,
we,
okay.
It's working good.
That is, it needs some little bit of body work, but that vehicle is perfect. It has the old style diesel engine in it. We want to keep that as long as we possibly can.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief, I have a question for you. What's the
Yes.
general use of that truck on a day-to-day basis?
It's the vehicle that I drive on a day-to-day basis. I respond to calls to.
Okay.
There are things in that vehicle that I have to have with me. I can't really go into detail as to what they are, but there are things in that vehicle that I have to have with me at all times. If I'm at work, if I'm at home.
Does that vehicle have to be retrofitted similar to the police or not quite? As far as,
Yeah, I mean, it has to have the light bar put on it and
as
the
far as the
radios.
interior, like I know they had to move, they had to have, do you have to have a computer in
No, I
in
don't
front?
know. Our reporting is done on an iPad.
Okay.
So we ordered the center console like the police did, where you can install your radios and the control for your siren, but we don't use computers anymore.
Chief, do you know what the mileage is on the current vehicle?
73,000.
Hard miles.
A lot of them, yeah.
Yeah.
The Expedition was not built for what we use it
Okay.
for. This is actually built for police and fire
Okay.
use. so.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else for the chief before we make him go down and come back, Mr. Messner?
Mr. President?
Yes.
I might note, we're paying cash for this as well. It's
Okay.
not leased, it's been budgeted for, and we will pay cash.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Thanks, chief, for coming in.
This time I motion to add ordinance 78, 2019 to tonight's agenda for a first reading.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Letter D, fire study MOU, Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a fire study that the administration of Norton and Barberton would like to get into. I'll just say right up front, I'm cautious on this, skeptical, I guess. But I think with bills always going up, it doesn't hurt to look into something. So this is a memorandum of understanding that both communities would hire an independent consultant to see if there would be a benefit of making a joint fire district between Barberton and Norton. It's important, I think, for the public to know that it's a non-binding agreement. It's just simply for the research. There's a limit of $5,000 per community for Norton and Barberton to spend on the consultant that will be agreed with later. The contract says the consultant will have expertise in operation of fire and EMS departments and/or the formation of joint fire districts. Does anybody else have any other discussion on this, or does the administration want to elaborate any?
Mr. Fowler.
You know, we've talked about costs, and we look at the MOU as only a tool to evaluate whether or not what we are doing is sustainable. And I think we've all talked about our job is to make sure whatever we're doing is in the best interest of our community. And before any decision would be made, this study would only make a recommendation. It's non-binding. I think you articulated that. And I think it's just a matter of making sure the path we're on is the right path for our community. And I think that's what the study will point the most.
So just to follow up on what Mr. Tousley said, I guess, you know, a lot of times in the law we talk about presumptions. There's presumptions for or against certain things. And in my view, my presumption is, and I start off probably from the same point that Mr. Tousley does, that you're going to have to show me that this is a lot better in order for me to think that it's a good idea. But you know, by the same token, it is always good to explore, to look, to see if there is a better way to do things. I know this has been what many communities, including our own, have done with. We've done it with dispatch, so it's worth looking at. I must admit, I'm a bit skeptical, but that's why you do the study. That's why you get the information, and then you make a decision from there. So since this is just a study, I think it's a good idea, and we'll go from there, at least in my estimation. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Ms. Whipke.
I feel the same way that you and Mr. Tousley do. Have nothing whatsoever about doing the feasibility study. I think it's a good idea, but that doesn't mean that anything's going to come of it. We just need to look at the possibility that it could. But if and when this takes place and it's done, we'll be looking at it a whole lot closer before we move.
That's for sure.
I guess one question is, did they ever say how long this study could take?
That's what I was going to ask.
I mean, my guess is 6 to 9 months because, you know, they're going to have to do a deep dive into financials, long-term costs. I mean, it's not something we don't want to. My perspective is I don't want something quick.
Right.
I would rather have a thorough, more detailed examination of both entities to make sure the recommendation we get is accurate.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think you have to look at what personnel costs are and the properties that each city has and what they have, and you know and then how it works if you do come up with a different district and stuff. So that can't be quick. That's got to take some time.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect before next year.
No.
To Mr. McGlone's question, the actual MOU says it expires December 31st, 2020.
Okay.
So, and both parties have an opportunity to terminate sooner if they'd like.
Did you say December 31st, 2020?
Correct.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. All right.
I'll just throw it in there just to put on your radar. One of the reasons we're looking at this type of study at this time is next year the fire levy does renew, right? So it's just part of our due diligence as an administration, as part of that renewal process, to figure out, is there another way to do it? Is there a way to save money, right? Levy is generated less over time, so we're just trying to make sure that we explore every option as we go into next year.
Okay. More information's better than less.
And Mr. President, if I may, also, as far as back to the chief's vehicle, we want to keep that in the rotation just in case we end up staying the way we are.
Right.
But it'll certainly give us an opportunity to look. But like you said, basically, we don't want to get caught behind the 8 ball and not be where we should be. So.
Right. Okay. Good. Anything else?
I also noticed the draft ordinance has no hurry in it whatsoever. Is that just fine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that, unless there's other discussion, I will make a motion to add ordinance number 79, 2019 to tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to add the ordinance to tonight's agenda for a first reading. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Tousley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carrot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Letter E, we are going to hold until next week. We're waiting. The clerk of council had contacted various persons to get some information that we need, and that has not come through yet, so we are not going to deal with letter E, NOPEC, tonight. We will look at that next week. We'll put that on our agenda next week. Letter F, excavator and trailer. Ms. Whipke?
Thank you, Mr. President. This deals with ordinances 82 and 83 respectively. We're looking at replacing our 2013 Kobelka excavator. It's due to be replaced. We actually get to trade this in and hoping to get are looking to get $52,000 for a trade-in so that the actual money that we'll be putting out won't exceed $51,154. This would be coming from Southeastern Equipment Company, and it was purchased under the Cooperative Purchasing Program, which satisfies the charter under 5.03 as far as competitive bidding. The only question, how long do these normally last? I can't remember. Was the 2013 wasn't a new one, was it?
Yes.
It was new?
So,
Yes.
so we're approaching the end of its useful life. It needs new tracks. It's going to need significant dollars put into maintenance. So rather than put that money into maintenance, our thought was, as our capital improvement plan, instead of putting that money into maintenance, let's buy it new. We're going to trade one in that we're getting a high resale value out of. And so as you look over time, we'll save significant dollars. So we could put significant money into the tracks and other things, and it would last. But the amount we're going to put into tracks and other maintenance is going to essentially, it's going to be not quite equal a new one, but it's going to be a significant dent in the price.
Okay.
Anyone else? At this time, I motion to add ordinance 82, 2019 to tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
And do we need emergency language on this
No, we can go three readings.
for the first reading? Sorry.
That's okay. I'll second that. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Okay, the second part of this, the second piece of legislation is actually for a trailer to haul the excavator around on, and it's from Top Hat, not to exceed, well, actually, it's a Top Hat excavator from Majestic Trailer and Hitch, not to exceed $15,554. Don't we have a trailer now?
I was just going to say.
The new trailer will fit the new. This unit's a little bigger.
Okay.
So Larry wanted to go with something a little more hefty. So
So what are we going to do with the old trailer? Then keep it, or does it go with the excavator?
we have plenty of extra needs for a
So
trailer.
it's still usable and
Getting
will
rid
be
of the
used.
excavator.
I see on the bill from Majestic that there's a trade for $1,500. What's that?
Give me a second. I'll text
Okay.
them.
Thank you.
Incidentally, Mr. President, this is budgeted for as well, and we will be paying cash.
Okay. In this year's budget?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Well,
According to Mis-
obviously. I apologize.
According to Mr. Hess, he's trading in the trailer. That's why
Trading
we
the
get
other
credit
trailer in.
is
Okay, I
for-
thought maybe that's what it was. Okay.
This time I motion to add ordinance 83, 2019 to tonight's agenda.
I'll second that. There's a motion and a second to add ordinance 83, 2019 to the agenda for first reading. Further discussion or questions? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
And letter G, MUD rezone of Brookside. Mr. Gaynor?
Yes, this is, as you said, rezoning of Brookside for the multi-use development. It's an ordinance that planning has already looked at and passed back to us. And this is for its first reading. I'd like to move it to tonight's agenda, please.
All right.
I'll second.
And I have a motion and a second to move that to tonight's agenda. Further discussion. My understanding is we need 3 full readings, and we will have a public hearing.
That's what I was going to mention. That
Okay.
like all zoning rezonings, there'll be a
Okay.
public hearing scheduled.
All right, and that will be at the time of the second reading?
We're trying to figure out the logistics
Okay.
of when it's 15 days required before
Okay.
before the hearing is held. So we're trying to figure out publication schedules and what we can get in the newspaper.
We could, even if we wanted to, we could read it a couple more times until we have,
You can read it as many times as you want.
until we can have a public hearing on it.
That's right.
And that's when the public should come in and speak on this particular issue. This will be their opportunity at the public hearing. Okay.
That,
Mr. Towesley?
this will not likely get passed until after the summer break, is that correct?
Just depends on,
I-
we gotta figure it out.
Yeah, I've got to figure out the calendar because I know we've got a number of things that we want to get done before the break, but we'll see.
The only reason I ask is I know there are interested parties,
Mhm.
and the sooner we can let them know what's happening, the sooner they can participate.
I will definitely take a look at that for sure. Anything else? All right, there's a motion and a second to move ordinance 84, 2019 onto tonight's agenda for a first reading. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Anything further to come before committee of the whole? Consideration of minutes, the minutes of the regular council meeting of June 10th, 2019. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those? They will be accepted as submitted. Reports from officers, boards, and commissions. Mayor Zita.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. President, Mr. Mayor. In addition to the bridge failure at Kungle, needless to say, we experienced a lot of rain beginning about 5 o'clock this morning, and shortly thereafter that, we were out most of the day trying to assess and try and see what we could do to remedy some situations around town. I know that 76 is closed still at Barber Road, east and westbound, and probably will remain that way here for the next day or so. I mean, basically, it is what it is. There's a lot of standing water, and I know a lot of nixles have been sent out on behalf of us and the city of Barberton, just kind of warning people of the high waters and what to avoid. We just ask that everybody just continues to think safety and be on your watchful eye. So,
Okay.
Other than that, that's all I have at this time.
I will let everybody know. I got a notification from FEMA that the flood warning has been lifted
Okay.
at this
Well, that's a
point.
good
But if
sign,
it starts
yeah.
raining again,
Yeah.
they'll just renew it. So.
Right, correct.
All right, Mr. Fowler.
Unfortunately, rain is not conducive to paving. So, I told you we were going to do some paving last week, and they got some of it started and didn't get it finished because of the weather. And unfortunately, it looks like they're going to get rained out a lot this week, but they will finish. I'm optimistic that this year they'll get the paving done. So bear with us. We will notify you. You may get calls from constituents. We do have someone that goes door to door a day or so before, indicating to folks that they'll be coming through paving. That way they're aware. So if anyone would call, they can. It has our number on it for the engineer's office, but just if you would get a call on that. We've seen an uptick of anonymous complaints recently. And I know prior to my arrival, several years prior, there were some discussions with council on anonymous complaints. We're still taking anonymous complaints seriously, and we do run into situations where certain complaints can cause difficulty for us. So I'm just letting you know that if someone does administer an anonymous complaint, we are addressing it, because that was how we apparently discussed it before I got here, how to proceed. And then lastly, to just articulate through the mayor, or kind of reiterate what the mayor said, our crews worked hard the last 2 days. We had police and fire, and the service guys did an incredible job. And you may have noticed that we put up a new gate on Barber Road. You can't see it today, of course, but essentially it's a gate that crosses Barber Road that keeps people from driving through in the event that it would be flooding. And I apologize because we just put that up last week. And of course this has happened. It's not quite finished, but I want to tell you that the service guys did a great job installing it. And Barberton's looking to get one on their end, so we'll have two gates on both ends that the police can go and shut with road closed on it. You can't drive through it, but if you someone happens to ask, that is our gate. We put it up. We paid for it. We just looked at it as a means to prohibit folks from driving into that area during high water events, and it is just north of the bridge, believe. No, south of the bridge. I'm sorry, just south of the bridge.
When it's not in use, though, it will be affixed to another adjacent pole on the same side of the road, so it won't.
Great. My weather app shows sunshine on Friday, so maybe we can get the crews out there. Mr. Messner.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Mr. Markey.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Whipke.
I've been getting some calls about the trash pickup. Do we know anything positive about that? People saying that they're either late or haven't showed up.
I know we did receive some calls of late trash pickup. We notified Republic. They went out and picked it up. If for some reason your trash wouldn't be picked up, just let us know and we'll send Republic an email. I know there have been issues with contacting the national office, wherever that is. If you have concerns or complaints, please, we'll try to address them for you or put you in contact with somebody from the local Massillon office and try to get them addressed.
So you would prefer that people call the city? Is that what you're saying?
If they can't get their issue resolved
All right.
by talking to Republic.
Or they should call the local Massillon office of Republic.
Well, I don't know that there's a local number. It's only an
Okay.
800 number.
Okay, gotcha.
If you call the 800 number and can't be successful,
All right.
we'll try our best to get you in contact with other
Okay.
folks.
Or they can call one of us and we can pass it on. Our numbers are on
Email works famously.
Numbers are on the website.
Email works
Or
best
email.
only because when you email me, I can forward your email to the person that handles the complaints, and he can contact you directly rather than him contact me, and we play the telephone game.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? There are no public hearings. Introduction of new legislation, ordinance number 76, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I introduce ordinance 76, 2019 for its first reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to execute and deliver a contract with Roadmaster Corporation for cleaning services for city buildings.
First reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 77, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I introduce ordinance 77, 2019, and ask the clerk to read it, please, for first reading.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of agreements with TCF Equipment Finance for the lease purchase of a Timco Model 600 street sweeper.
Thank you. First reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 78, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I introduce ordinance 78, 2019 for its first reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a 2019 Dodge Durango for the Division of Fire and Emergency Medical Services at a cost not to exceed $24,924.
Thank you. First reading only.
Ordinance number 79, 2019. Mr. Towsley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 79, 2019 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a memorandum of understanding with the City of Barberton to study the issue of forming a joint fire district.
Thank you. First reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 80, 2019.
We're skipping.
We are skipping that. We did not add that. Thank you. Ordinance number 81, 2019.
Skipping.
Skipping also. And ordinance number 82, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I introduce ordinance 82, 2019 for its first reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a Kobelco SK80CS excavator for the Service Department at a cost not to exceed $51,154.
Thank you. First reading only.
Ordinance number 83, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
I introduce ordinance 83, 2019 for its first reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a Top Hat excavator trailer for the Service Department at a cost not to exceed $15,554.
Thank you. First reading only.
Ordinance number 84, 2019. Mr. Gaynor.
Yes, I'll offer ordinance 84, 2019, first reading, and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance rezoning of property described as permanent parcel numbers 46-00259 and 46-04166 in the city from a C-REC district to a mixed-use district.
All right. Ordinance number 57, 2019. Mr. Gaynor.
Yes, I'll offer ordinance 57, 2019 for its third reading, please, and ask the clerk to read it.
An ordinance rezoning property described as permanent parcel numbers 4606218 and 4606219 from a B2 district to a B3 district.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve, please.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 57, 2019. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. And true to form, FEMA just issued another flash flood watch.
Oh.
I'm sorry. All right, resolution number 67, 2019, Mr. Towsley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I have this read, I do have a question on it
Yes.
real quick for the administration. Last week when we discussed this, I had asked about, I think it was a 31-member panel. I had asked if we had representation on that and who it was. Were you able to find out?
Mr. Fowler, I think it was listed that it was Mr. White and Mr. Bremen were listed in the attachments.
I had sent an email to the fire and police chief, and I didn't get a response, so
Okay.
that makes
Well,
sense.
we can find out
Ed,
still.
Ed, what did you say you thought, Carrie?
The attachments in the 2014 membership list
Okay.
listed Mr. White and
Okay.
Mr. Bremen.
Mr. Bill Bremen? Okay. But that was 2014?
Yes.
Okay, so if we could find that out, just to update that and make sure.
Okay, thank you.
I will get with our city engineer and see if
Thank
he
you.
might know.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I will offer resolution number 67, 2019 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution authorizing the approval and adoption of the Summit County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Second reading only, thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance number 68, 2019, Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 68, 2019 for its second reading and ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to authorize the administrative officer to enter into an agreement with DLZ Ohio Incorporated for professional engineering services in connection with the construction, management, and inspection of the Johnson Road intersection project in an amount not to exceed $13,903.
Second reading only,
Thank you. Ordinance number 69, 2019, Ms. Whipke.
I offer ordinance 69, 2019 for its second reading and ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to authorize the administrative officer to enter into an agreement with Ohio Department of Transportation in connection with the South Medina Line Road resurfacing project and declaring an emergency.
Second reading only, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ordinance number 70, 2019 is mine. I offer ordinance number 70, 2019 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of water line easement agreements for Eastern Road Water Line Extension Project and declaring an emergency.
And that's for a second reading only. Ordinance number 71, 2019, Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 71, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance accepting the bid of HSH Construction and Excavating Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $589,720 for the Eastern Road Waterline Project and declaring an emergency.
Second reading only, thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance number 72, 2019, Mr. McGlone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 72, 2019 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to add section 240.09 of the codified ordinances of the City of Norton.
Second reading only.
Ordinance number 73, 2019, Mr. Carratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to offer ordinance 73, 2019 for its second reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance providing consent to the Ohio Department of Transportation regarding the project designated as PID 103277 and declaring an emergency.
And since I was not at last week's meeting, I'm assuming this is an urgent issue to get some signage out there, so I am going to ask or make a motion to waive the third reading and bring to a vote tonight.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the third reading. Is there any discussion regarding waiver? And if we could, Mr. Fowler, what's the reason for the waiver, just for the public's
So-
edification?
ODOT has a time requirement for some of these to get passed. The LPA is not, where we're doing Medina Line isn't an urgent issue because we don't have our funding in place yet. The ODOT's doing the project at 100% of their cost, no cost to us. So we're asking to move it along so we can get it sent to ODOT, certified, and everything's handled.
Any further discussion regarding waiver? Will clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
I'd like to move that we adopt ordinance 73, 2019.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 73, 2019. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Resolution number 74, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer Resolution 74, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
A resolution declaring it necessary to improve New Park Drive in the city by constructing, improving paving, grading, draining, constructing curbs and driveway aprons, and constructing and installing storm sewer improvements, together with necessary appurtenances thereto, comprising the New Park Drive project, and declaring an emergency.
Second reading only. Thank you.
Ordinance number 75, 2019 is mine. I offer ordinance 75, 2019 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to amend section 660.07 of the codified ordinances of the city of Norton, Ohio.
And that's also for a second reading only. Are there any public service announcements, Mayor?
Yes, I have one. Thank you. This coming Wednesday evening, Norton Library will be celebrating its 50th year, or 50 years of library service in the Norton community. To recognize the milestone, they're hosting an event. It would be from 6 to 7:30 at the library. They'll have a brief presentation of the history of the library in Norton, remarks from our library director, and refreshments will be provided by Friends of the Library. So just want to let anybody know that they're all welcome to attend the event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fowler.
So I received some correspondence regarding that item, so I just wanted to let everyone know while I had you. So I asked the chief who serves on as part of the mitigation plan, and he says both chiefs have input in the mitigation plan, and the fire chief sits on a board, the LEPC. So he says the fire chief is part of that board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further public service announcements from administration or council? Is there any further business to come before council? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.
Fine job there, young man.
Have a good one, big guy.